gunwales between them. In the afternoon of Midsummer's Day the Elector brought the ketch into Moonfleet, and there was a posse of constables to march the smugglers off to Dorchester jail. The prisoners trudged up through the village, ironed two and two together, while people stood at their doors or followed them, the men greeting them with a kindly word, for we knew most of them as Ringstave and Monkbury men, and the women sorrowing for their wives. But they left David's body in the ketch, so the boy paid dear for his night's frolic. "Aye, 'twas a cruel, cruel thing to fire on so young a lad," Ratsey said, as he stepped back a pace to study the effect of a flag that he was chiselling on the revenue schooner, "and trouble is likely to come to the other poor fellows taken, for Lawyer Empson says 3 of them will surely hang at next assize. I recollect," he went on, "30 years ago, when there was a bit of a scuffle between the Royal Sophie and the Marnhull, they hanged 4 of the contrabandiers, and my old father caught his death of cold, what with going to see the poor chaps turned off at Dorchester, and standing up to his knees in the River Froom to get a sight of them, for all the countryside was there, and such a press there was no place on land. There, that's enough," he said, turning again to the gravestone. "On Monday I'll line the ports in black, and get a brush of red to pick out the flag. And now, my son, you've helped with the lantern, so come down to the Why Not, and there I'll have a word with Elzevir, who sadly needs the talk of kindly friends to cheer him, and we'll find you a glass of Hollands to keep out autumn chills." I was but a lad, and thought it a vast honour to be asked to the Why Not, for did not such an invitation raise me at once to the dignity of manhood? Ah, sweet boyhood, how eager are we as boys to be quit of thee! With what regret do we look back on thee before our man's race is half-way run! Yet was not my pleasure without alloy, for I feared even to think of what Aunt Jane would say if she knew that I had been at the Why Not, and beside that I stood in awe of grim old Elzevir Block, grimmer and sadder 1,000 times since David's death. The Why Not was not the real name of the inn. It was properly the Mohune Arms. The Mohunes had once owned, as I have said, the whole of the village, but their fortunes fell, and with them fell the fortunes of Moonfleet. The ruins of their mansion showed grey on the hillside above the village, their almshouses stood halfway down the street, with the quadrangle deserted and overgrown. The Mohune image and superscription was on everything from the church to the inn, and everything that bore it was stamped also with the superscription of decay. And here it is necessary that I say a few words as to this family badge, for, as you will see, I was to bear it all my life, and shall carry its impress with me to the grave. The Mohune shield was plain white or silver, and bore nothing upon it except a great black Y. I call it a Y, though the Reverend Mr. Glennie once explained to me that it was not a Y at all, but what heralds call a cross-pall. Cross-pall or no cross-pall, it looked for all the world like a black Y, with a broad arm ending in each of the top corners of the shield, and the tail coming down into the bottom. You might see that cognizance carved on the manor, and on the stonework and woodwork of the church, and on a score of houses in the village, and it hung on the signboard over the door of the inn. Every one knew the Mohune Y for miles around, and a former landlord having called the inn the Why Not, in jest, the name had stuck to it ever since. More than once on winter evenings, when men were drinking in the Why Not, I had stood outside and listened to them singing Ducky Stones, or Kegs Bobbing 1, 2, 3, or some of the other tunes that sailors sing in the West. Such songs had neither beginning nor ending, and very little sense to catch hold of in the middle. One man would crone the air, and the others would crone a solemn chorus. But there was little hard drinking, for Elzevir Block never got drunk himself, and did not like his guests to get drunk either. On singing nights the room grew hot, and the steam stood so thick on the glass inside that one could not see in. But at other times, when there was no company, I have peeped through the red curtains and watched Elzevir Block and Ratsey playing backgammon at the trestle table by the fire. It was on the trestle table that Block had afterwards laid out his son's dead body, and some said they had looked through the window at night and seen the father trying to wash the blood matting out of the boy's yellow hair, and heard him groaning and talking to the lifeless clay as if it could understand. Anyhow, there had been little drinking in the inn since that time, for Block grew more and more silent and morose. He had never courted customers, and now he scowled on any that came, so that men looked on the Why Not as a blighted spot, and went to drink at the Three Choughs at Ringstave. My heart was in my mouth when Ratsey lifted the latch and led me into the inn parlour. It was a low, sanded room, with no light except a fire of seawood on the hearth, burning clear and lambent with blue salt flames. There were tables at each end of the room, and wooden-seated chairs round the walls, and at the trestle table by the chimney sat Elzevir Block, smoking a long pipe and looking at the fire. He was a man of 50, with a shock of grizzled hair, a broad but not unkindly face of regular features, bushy eyebrows, and the finest forehead that I ever saw. His frame was thick-set and still immensely strong. Indeed, the countryside was full of tales of his strange prowess or endurance. Blocks had been landlords at the Why Not, father and son, for years, but Elzevir's mother came from the Low Countries, and that was how he got his outland name and could speak Dutch. Few men knew much of him, and folks often wondered how it was he kept the Why Not on so little custom as went that way. Yet he never seemed to lack for money, and if people loved to tell stories of his strength, they would speak also of widows helped and sick comforted with unknown gifts, and hint that some of them came from Elzevir Block, for all he was so grim and silent. He turned round and got up as we came in, and my fears led me to think that his face darkened when he saw me. "What does this boy want?" he said to Ratsey sharply. "He wants the same as I want, and that's a glass of Ararat milk to keep out autumn chills," the sexton answered, drawing another chair up to the trestle table. "Cow's milk is best for children such as he," was Elzevir's answer, as he took 2 shining brass candlesticks from the mantel-board, set them on the table, and lit the candles with a burning chip from the hearth. "John is no child. He is the same age as David, and comes from helping me to finish David's headstone. 'Tis finished now, barring the paint upon the ships, and, please God, by Monday night we will have it set fair and square in the churchyard, and then the poor lad may rest in peace, knowing he has above him Master Ratsey's best handiwork, and the parson's verses to set forth how shamefully he came to his end." I thought that Elzevir softened a little as Ratsey spoke of his son, and he said, "Ay, David rests in peace. 'Tis they that brought him to his end that shall not rest in peace when their time comes, and it may come sooner than they think," he added, speaking more to himself than to us. I knew that he meant Mr. Maskew, and recollected that some had warned the magistrate that he had better keep out of Elzevir's way, for there was no knowing what a desperate man might do. And yet the two had met since in the village street, and nothing worse come of it than a scowling look from Block. "Tush, man," broke in the sexton, "it was the foulest deed ever man did. But let not thy mind brood on it, nor think how thou mayest get thyself avenged. Leave that to Providence. For he whose wisdom lets such things be done will surely see they meet their due reward. Vengeance is mine, I will repay, saith the Lord." And he took his hat off and hung it on a peg. Block did not answer,